Mass shootings and gun violence has reared its ugly head repeatedly here in the United States over the last few years. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they're still tallying the current number of deaths related to guns, but some gun right activists and experts are now calling this a quote unquote gun epidemic. A report by a US-based publication known as The Trace cited an FBI analysis saying that Americans bought around 1.21 million guns in August of 2023. This includes around 730,000 handguns and 490,000 long-range guns. Texas, Florida, Pennsylvania, and California are the top four states where the highest gun sales were recorded. The report claims the demand for firearms increases after events like mass shootings and elections as well. There have been more than 470 mass shootings across the U.S. this year alone until August. The figures include shootings that happened in homes as well as public places. And for each of the last 3 years, there have been more than 600 mass shootings, almost two a day on average. A 2018 report by the Geneva-based Small Arms Survey discovered that U.S. gun owners have 393 million firearms. This is more than the country's current population of 340 million. President Joe Biden has referred to the increase in gun violence in the United States as a quote unquote, a gun violence epidemic. Last June, President Biden signed into law a gun safety package passed by Congress. It is the first gun reform bill from Congress in decades. However, some advocates across the U.S. want tougher regulations and laws that can limit the sale of guns over the counter. But the question is, how do you regulate unregistered and illegal guns? One of the many challenges to any advocate or politician who wants to limit the sale of guns is the influential and powerful lobby in the United States known as the NRA, the National Rifle Association. It was founded back in 1871 as a recreational group designed to promote and encourage rifle shooting. It lobbies against all kinds of gun control and argues that more guns make the country safer, a sentiment many Americans also share. For more on this, we are being joined by Glenn Carl, former National Intelligence Officer from the CIA and national security and foreign policy experts. He's joining us live from Boston, Massachusetts. Glenn, thank you so much for joining us. Welcome back to WION. So this case, this latest one in Maine, just looks like a textbook case of an individual that should not have had a firearm anywhere close to him, considering the fact that he was in a mental institution. He said himself that he was hallucinating, he was seeing stuff, but still, he went on to this mass shooting spree, killing so many and injuring so many others. Is this a failure of our system?
Oh, it's certainly a failure of the system. It's also a pathology of American society. It's shocking to me that we just live in this repeating loop of insanity where people sincerely, as you were pointing out, a large percentage of Americans sincerely believe that guns will make them safer. The empirical evidence, this is not a personal assessment, the empirical evidence proves that people who have guns, quote, for self-defense, which is the justification given by many for our current crazy gun laws. People who have guns, quote, for self-defense, are at a much higher likelihood of being harmed by guns. Guns don't protect people because most people are normal, and they, in a life and death situation with a gun, don't really behave very sensibly. They'll shoot a neighbor, they'll shoot themselves, their children will shoot themselves. They will hesitate to use a gun in self-defense because they are humane, as most people are. But the perpetrator then becomes more frightened and more violent when he sees himself or herself threatened by a weapon. So the one sensible argument really is complete lunacy. But it is a social pathology in the United States that paralyzes our institutions from doing anything about it. It's at this point, I almost can't watch these reports because, as you said, there are 470 this year. There are over 1 million Americans who have been killed by guns in the United States since the year 2000 or 2001, the attacks of 2001. That's more than all the wars America has fought in American history, 250 years. It's a national sickness.
Glenn, what about this mental health epidemic that we've been facing for years? And apparently we can't even agree on that either. There are those that argue that people kill people, not guns that are the problem killing people, but then you have guns in the hands of people that really need help mentally. But once again, we fail that aspect of it as well.
Well, we do, but I think that's also a red herring, frankly. That's the one of the lines put out quite consciously by the public relations people of the National Rifle Association. And of course, it's true that people with mental health issues, certain kinds of mental health issues, shouldn't be near dangerous objects, shouldn't have guns, the ultimate dangerous object for an individual. It turns someone who is troubled into a mass killer instead of someone who is troubled, whom you can approach and try to help. But mental health and the gun crisis, although they have been conflated by the gun propagandists, are really two separate issues. And of course, I don't know that there is an epidemic of mental health. I think there's an increased awareness that societies, people have, all of us are on a spectrum of how we respond to our daily challenges. And a percentage of every society has issues coping with reality or with the stresses of life. We need to be compassionate and offer professional assistance so that mental illness is treated like physical illness, of course. But that's a separate issue. It really is a separate issue, even though in the debate, if there were a gun proponent with us today, he would argue vehemently that I am wrong. The issue really is weapons design, tools designed to kill, and that is a gun.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot agree with you more. We have to lead with sympathy, with empathy, when we deal with these mental issues on the one hand, and then, the aftermath of these mass shootings, just one after the other. Just terrible. Glenn Carl, thank you so much for joining us on WION, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Always a pleasure.